Hi, my dear ones. Today's episode is something you will definitely watch until the end, because what we're about to talk about sounds like a movie script, but these are real traditions that still exist in some regions of Africa. Incredible first wedding night customs in Africa. Is this real? Is it a myth? Or is it just exaggerated internet stories? Are you ready? Because what I discovered honestly shocked me. When we hear first wedding night, most of us imagine romance, candles, a white dress, happiness, privacy. But in some African tribes, things happen very differently. In certain traditional communities, the first wedding night is not a private event. It is a community event. And sometimes, it happens under supervision. For example, in some parts of East Africa, there was a tradition where an older woman of the family, often an aunt or elder relative, would give instructions to the couple right before their first night. But that's the soft version. In some tribes, the groom's family would literally wait outside the door to make sure the marriage was confirmed. Yes, you understood correctly. In some cultures, the question of virginity carries enormous importance, and proof could be shown publicly. Shocking? Wait! This is only the beginning. In some communities, the newlyweds don't even spend the first night completely alone. The involvement of elders is considered part of the rite of passage. It is connected to ancient beliefs that the young couple must go through a transition ritual under the protection of the clan. But it's very important to understand, Africa is huge. Dozens of countries, hundreds of cultures. We cannot generalize. In some places, these traditions are long gone. In others, they have transformed into symbolic rituals. And here's the main question. Is this cruelty? Or is it a cultural code that for centuries was seen as normal? In part 2, things get even more unexpected, because some first night traditions are not about control, but about female power, and this is where it becomes even more interesting. In some West African cultures, the first wedding night was seen as a moment when a woman demonstrates her strength, not submission. Yes, completely opposite to the stereotype. In certain traditions, the bride went through special preparation before marriage. Elder women of the tribe trained her, but not just in household duties. She was taught the art of marriage, relationship psychology, feminine energy, sexual knowledge. This was considered sacred wisdom. Here's the paradox. In Western culture, sexual education was taboo for a long time, yet in some African communities, it was openly passed down as part of becoming a woman. But there were also harsher customs. In some regions, virginity testing rituals existed that today would spark international outrage. These practices have been heavily criticized by human rights organizations and are gradually being banned. However, within local communities, these customs were not always perceived as violence. They were seen as protecting family honor. Do you see how differently the same tradition can be interpreted depending on cultural perspective? And here's another surprising fact. In some tribes, the groom had to prove his maturity to the bride. Yes. Not the other way around. He was expected to show strength, endurance, and readiness to provide for a family. If he failed, the marriage could even be cancelled. So the pressure was not only on women. From a modern urban perspective, these traditions may seem extreme, but for traditional societies, they were part of a value system built over centuries. And most importantly, many of these practices no longer exist or have significantly changed. Africa is not a frozen continent. It is dynamic and evolving. In part 3, we'll talk about what is real, what is exaggerated, and why the internet often distorts these stories. Now let's be honest, when the internet talks about shocking first wedding night customs in Africa, it is usually presented without context. without explaining that these traditions belong to specific tribes, specific regions, and often to the past. Africa consists of 54 countries, thousands of ethnic groups, different religions, different levels of urbanization, different histories. In major cities like Lagos, Nairobi, or Cape Town, weddings often look very similar to Western ones. Mansagan si saman si saigin chisiao dosio amoti si seman si but in remote traditional communities, unusual rituals may still exist. The key is not to romanticize and not to demonize. Yes, some rituals today raise serious concerns and debates. Yes, some stories online are exaggerated for clicks. And yes, culture is always more complex than one headline. It was important for me to talk about this without judgment and without sensationalism. Is to Write your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe such traditions could really exist? And would you like more episodes about unusual customs around the world? If you found this interesting, please support the video with a like and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more stories that give you chills. Sending you a big hug. See you in the next episode.